In 1957, the U.S. had the policy of separate but equal for schools. This meant that blacks and whites could be in segregated schools as long as they were equal. The schools were never equal and the white schools were always better. Brown versus Board of Education was a Supreme Court case that ruled that separate but equal was just a disguise for inequality. It said separate but equal had no place in education. This started desegregation of schools. This angered many Southern whites, and many citizens talked about how they would resist integration. 101 Southern congressmen signed the Southern Manifesto, saying it would close all public schools before they would integrate. The Deep South was very opposed to the Brown decision and fought it. Arkansas was a southern state, but in Little Rock, where the population was a third African American, blacks served as police, served on juries, rode on integrated buses, and went to integrated libraries. But there was still segregation at restaurants, schools, theaters, and waiting rooms. Little Rock School District decided to integrate school 5 days after the Brown decision, but delayed it with many excuses. They complained they did not know how to integrate. Eventually, they decided to integrate one high school with limited students. The NAACP went to court to demand integration of all schools, but they came with the decision to integrate Central High School without delay. Teachers from Dunbar and Horace Mann High School, all African American schools, made a list of students with good grades and good behavior to transfer to Central High School. 75 students were chosen, but only 9 decided to actually transfer. They were told by administrators of Central High School that they could not participate in sports, band, dances, or clubs. The governor of Arkansas, Orville Faubus, was going to stand for new elections, and he did not want to integrate because most of his voters were segregationists. He tried to delay the integration in order to not lose voters, but it was to no avail. 517 African American students live in the Central High Attendance District and are eligible to attend Central High in the 1957 to 1958 school year. 80 expressed an interest in doing so. Following interviews with the superintendent and school district staff, 17 are selected for the first year of integration. 8 of those later decide to remain at all-black Horace Mann High School. Segregationist Mothers League of Central High School holds its first public meeting. They file a motion seeking a temporary injunction against school integration. 2 days later, Pulaski, Chancellor Murray Reed, grants the injunction of the grounds that integration could lead to violence. On August 30th, 1957, federal judge Ronald Davies nullifies the injunction and orders the school board to proceed with its desegregation plan. Following on September 2nd, 1957, Governor Orville Faubus orders the Arkansas National Guard to prohibit African American students from entering Central High School and announces his plan in a televised speech. Judge Davies orders desegregation to start the next day. The African American students attempt to enter Central High but are turned away. The iconic image of Elizabeth Eckford being taunted by the mob appears on TV that night and in newspapers the next day. Little Rock's newest high school, Hall High, opens for its first day of classes ever. It has an all-white student body. On September 14th, 1957, President Dwight Eisenhower meets with Governor Faubus in an attempt to end the stalemate and allow the 9th students to enter the school. Arkansas Congressman Brooks Hayes helps facilitate the meeting. Judge Davies rules that Faubus is not using the troops to preserve law and orders them removed. Faubus removes the guardsmen and the Little Rock Police Department moves in. On September 23rd, 1957, an angry mob of over 1,000 whites gather in front of Central High School, while 9 African American students are escorted inside. The students become collectively referred to as the Little Rock Nine. A few hours later, the Little Rock Police removed the 9 students for their safety. President Eisenhower calls the rioting disgraceful and ordered federal troops back into Little Rock. 1,200 members of the 101st Airborne Division, the Screaming Eagles of Fort Campbell, Kentucky, roll into Little Rock. The Arkansas National Guard is placed under federal orders. Under troop escort, the Little Rock Nine are escorted back into Central High School for their first day of full classes. A Mothers League petition to remove the federal troops is dismissed by Judge Davies. 101st Airborne leaves Little Rock, replaced at Central High by National Guard and Little Rock Police. Taunted by white students, Minnie Jean Brown, one of the Little Rock Nine, dumps a bowl of chili on a bystander in the cafeteria. She is suspended for 6 days. Following additional harassment with white students, Minnie Jean Brown is expelled by the Board of Education. The Little Rock School Board files a request for permission to delay integration until the concept of all deliberate speed is defined. On May 5th, 1958, the Arkansas Gazette receives 2
Pulitzer Prizes for coverage of the Central High crisis. The paper won the Pulitzer for Public Service, and editor Harry Ashmore won for editorial writing. Senior Ernest Green becomes the first African-American student to graduate from Central High School.
It was only on September 25th, under the protection of federal troops, that these children were able to complete a full day of classes, thus becoming standard bearers for the civil rights movement that would change the nation. The Little Rock Nine was 9 black students enrolled at formerly all-white Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. In September 1957, testing a landmark 1954 U.S. Supreme Court ruling that declared segregation in public schools unconstitutional. The attendance at the school was a test of Brown v. Board of Education. On September 4, 1957, the first day of classes at Central High, Governor Orval Faubus called in the Arkansas National Guard to block the black students' entry into the high school. Later that month, President Dwight D. Eisenhower sent in federal troops to escort the Little Rock Nine into school. 9 African Americans were able to enter the school in 1958. Now there is a memorial in their honor and even a foundation dedicated to helping children like them get the education they deserve. Public schools are desegregated and their populations are more diverse. As the original students of the group watched on as the statues were revealed, some wept and all starting a glimpse into their own personal past, to the day that changed their lives. Memorial in Arkansas to honor living citizens. Testament is a representation of the brave students walking together, just like they did to go to school. The Little Rock Nine Foundation was created to promote the ideals of justice and equality of opportunity for all. Forged in the crucible of fierce opposition to the educational pursuits of 9 black young children, the foundation is dedicated to the proposition that racist ideology will not dictate educational policies and practices in the 21st century. The mission to this foundation was to provide direct financial support and a mentorship program for students to help them reach their educational goals. Further, it is our mission to encourage young people to take executive responsibility for their education, to step forward boldly and seize any available opportunity to expand awareness and understanding. The foundation seeks to create a viable link between young learners and those who offer support for their efforts.
Poverty is not a new issue and has been around as long as civilizations have existed. In the Progressive period from 1890 to 1920 in the United States, poor farmers moved to cities to escape the poverty on farms. This led to overcrowding of urban areas and dangerous working conditions in factories. People were paid little and lived in large, crowded, and dirty tenement houses. Conditions were terrible and people lived in poverty. In 1938, the Fair Labor Standards Act established a federal minimum wage of 25 cents an hour, which is about $4 in today's money. Poverty is still a major issue worldwide and also in America. 45 million people in the United States are in poverty, nearly 15% of the population. Government programs like food stamps and welfare help people in poverty and have also helped some people cross the poverty line. In the U.S., 9% of white people are poor, 22% of African Americans are poor, and 20% of Hispanics are poor. In the U.S., poor people are mostly low-wage workers where people can hardly find work. Weak economies in the U.S. have led to companies cutting jobs and companies shipping jobs overseas. Unemployed people are having a hard time finding jobs due to competition and job scarcity. Also, it is becoming harder for people to find affordable housing. Families would need a wage of $15.37 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom apartment at the average market price, while the federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. Another cause of poverty is substance abuse. 20% of homeless people have alcohol or drug addictions. Drugs are very costly and people are driven into poverty by buying more and more of them. Heroin can cost an addict thousands a week and can cost a cocaine addict about $700 a week. Alcoholics can struggle getting jobs from being drunk on the job or missing work. These addictions can drag someone deeper into poverty. Many people in poverty cannot afford higher education and therefore cannot get higher paying jobs. This keeps them in the poverty cycle. Without benefits and a good salary, it can be impossible to support a family and can drive them deeper into poverty.
The rise in poverty since the Great Recession poses a long-term threat to the U.S. national competitiveness. and will lead to slower economic growth if unaddressed. Critics of the war on poverty have echoed that view in recent months as U.S. Census Bureau figures show the poverty rate has remained relatively stagnant over the past 30 years. The latest report puts the poverty rate last year at 14.8%, 2.3 percentage points higher than in 2007, the year before the most recent recession. Over the years, we have found that children have been experiencing the highest rates of poverty in the United States. Sheldon Denziger, president of the Russell Sage Foundation, stated, "Government programs are the main reason why the poverty rate has not climbed even higher. The last 40 years have been a period of very slow wage growth and rising inequality." Many politicians and media are asking whether past efforts to reduce poverty has been successful. Even more importantly, some leaders in both parties are proposing fresh strategies to tackle poverty in America. These people are all working together to attempt to destroy poverty because it is damaging our earth. Poverty is like a parasite. It infects our society and saps our collective energy. Growing up in poverty prevents children from achieving their full potential, which means we as a society miss out on their unique perspectives, skills, and talents. While that is a shame at any level, it is a special loss at the leadership level, where fresh thinking and different experiences can lead to the type of revolutionary ideas that bring about profound change. In the past, when the economy improved, people got called back to work. There were benefits to the average worker. These days, wages don't necessarily rise when the economy improves. In fact, people going back to work after the recession may earn less money than they did before. Many firms have not provided wage increases, and some are using technology to reduce hours and pay. Some experts are mentioning how the Hamilton Project has commissioned 14 innovative evidence-based anti-poverty proposals. These proposals are authored by a diverse set of leading scholars, each tackling a specific aspect of the poverty crisis. By these leaders working together, we are able to demolish poverty piece by piece.
Children's Hunger Alliance directly feeds children nutritious and healthy meal options that ensures the reinforcement of a healthy lifestyle that many low-income children do not have access to. Oxfam America is one of the best-known organizations for advocating globally to eliminate injustices concerning poverty, hunger, and social issues. Combined with their expertise on these issues, they are able many times to garner the voice needed to effect real change concerning hunger. Bread for the World is an organization that works to end poverty by petitioning government officials for changes in the law, as well as working to help individuals find work. A law that exists today is Social Security. It's a government system that provides monetary assistance to people with an inadequate or no income. Some more organizations that help people of those in need are food banks, such as the Food Bank of Southern Tier. This was named the 2017 Food Bank of the Year by Feeding America. They work together to build and sustain hunger-free communities throughout the Southern Tier. They served 18,860 people every week and ended up distributing 10.5 million meals. Food stamps, a voucher issued by the government to those on low income, exchangeable for food, are also very helpful for those in poverty. For example, an organization here in Indiana, the Wheeler Mission, helps homeless people. Wheeler is a non-denominational Christian and social services organization which provide critically needed goods and services to the homeless, poor, and needy of central Indiana.